I don't want to be envied. I want to be loved.
From the director of Desperately Seeking Susan, Making Mr. Right.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're here to talk about 1987's Making Mr. Right and its Kino Lorber Blu-ray that just came out in March. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, and podcasts, we do all that here, and nothing would help this channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So this is actually a very special review because Carlos won our digital code giveaway a few weeks ago, and because he's a physical collector and it was just about competing in the digital code giveaway, he decided to take a pass on the digital code, but he asked me if I could review Making Mr. Right, which just happened to have a Kino Lorber Blu-ray come out. And it was only about $17. I was like, yeah, I'll do that, no problem. So I grabbed that Blu-ray, and I had known nothing about this movie going in. This was one of those, like, I probably scrolled by on John Malkovich IMDb page and just never thought anything of it. But then when I started doing my research into this movie's directed by Susan Seidelman, who back in the 80s actually had a couple big comedies. She directed Desperately Seeking Susan, which at the time came out in 1985, and it caught Madonna right on the rise. That is her first movie role, and that came out around the same time when Madonna just took off like a rocket. So that movie turned out to be a surprise hit, and that's why Orion Studios gave her a 3-picture deal that resulted in Making Mr. Right, and then what I think is probably her best movie that I know about is She-Devil, starring Meryl Streep and Roseanne Barr. Probably the only movie Roseanne Barr was ever good in, but that movie is actually hysterical. And I actually have a very fond memory of just watching that movie early in the morning one day when I was younger with nobody else awake and just being wrapped up in that story. It's a very fond memory of mine, and I never even realized that she also directed this movie. And this movie actually is kind of similar in tone to She-Devil as far as like the aesthetic and the sets go, because that's one thing about Making Mr. Right before we get into the plot and everything. This is one of the most 80s movies that has ever 80s anywhere, because, I mean, the colors, this movie takes place in Miami, Florida, so you got a bunch of bright, vibrant colors, pastel colors, you know, the sun's always shining, everything that everybody is wearing is reds and blues, and just things that pop out. Whenever you think of the 80s, that's what you think of, that Miami Vice look. At least that's what I think of. And man, that's popping up in here. And I mean, Jesus Christ, I wish that the Miami Vice look would come back. I would love to grow my hair out, just wear a coat with a wife beater underneath, with those shoes. Oh my God, I could pull that look off, I feel like, but unfortunately, it's just not in style, and I'll just get made fun of. Anyway, this movie does star John Malkovich and Ann Magnuson, and they both do great jobs in the lead roles. John Malkovich has to play 2 roles. He has to play this doctor who creates this android character, Ulysses, who is also played by him, and they have very different personalities. The doctor that created him is very stuck up, doesn't like people, just thinks that he's just above everybody because he has such a high intelligence. He doesn't have time for a regular social life like everybody else. He's just really concentrated on going to space. That's his ultimate goal, is going to space. Unfortunately, he doesn't feel like he can live that dream, so he creates Ulysses, who can live without human contact for 7 years. Unfortunately, the company that he works for, to get the government funding, they have to kind of spin this in a PR way. So that's where Ann Magnuson's character of Frankie Stone comes in, as she is a PR person. So she is going to humanize this android character and make him more appealing to the public. That's her goal, is to really, you know, basically buff him up and make him look like a real human being, because right now he's just struggling with that. You know, we see some clips of him having a hard time walking, pouring water, but you know, he's so innocent. It's like molding a brand new mind. And that's what this movie's about, is how their relationship, because she has some relationship struggles herself. She's dating a pretty damn sleazy Miami congressman, or running for congressman, who, you know, they have a past relationship. So she hasn't had a good experience with men. She even says that she hates men. So like, her interacting with this new mind that she can kind of mold in her own way creates some really funny scenes. I think John Malkovich is all on board. You really get those 2 John Malkoviches. You get the serious being John Malkovich, you know, the one that we always kind of really know. And then we get the Con Air John Malkovich, where he's really just down for anything, over-the-top acting. John Malkovich really could just do it all. He's a very underappreciated actor, in my opinion. He's never won an Academy Award. But, you know, he doesn't seem like, despite how he might seem like as far as his personality goes, because he kind of comes off the way he sounds, like a little bit dickish, but that's not true at all. It's just kind of how his voice is. And the way he performs in this film is just phenomenal. You know, he's playing 2 roles. You could tell he's down to do whatever they ask, because he does some ridiculous shit in this movie. And man, it's really funny. But you know who really stands out in this movie, and I thought was the best person in this movie, and she's not in it that much? Laurie Metcalf, also from the show Roseanne. She plays Aunt Jackie. She plays Billy Loomis's mom in Scream 2. And, you know, more recently, she was in Lady Bird. I believe she got an Academy Award nomination for that. So She is just a phenomenal actor, Laurie Metcalf, and she steals the scenes because she goes on a date with Ulysses thinking that it's John Malkovich's other character of the Doctor. She is just blown away by all the stuff that he's doing because he's just kind of incoherent. He doesn't seem to understand life. You know, he doesn't understand the concept of money, so like she thinks, oh, he's getting me a gift. And what does he do? He makes her pay for it, and she's just all blown away. She's like, the best line is like, oh, do you have a car? And she's like, yeah. She's like, can you take me somewhere? And she's like, oh, you don't have a car. And like, you could just hear it in her voice. Laurie Metcalf had some of my biggest laughs in this movie. I just wish that there was more of her. Everybody who was in this movie who has a supporting role is pretty damn funny. The late Glenn Headley was really funny in this movie as well. I really enjoyed seeing her, and she has I'm not going to spoil it, but it's something that happens between her and John Malkovich's Ulysses is pretty damn funny. That ends up coming up a couple times in this movie. Overall, as far as an 80s comedy go, you know, we had a lot of comedies come out in the 80s, and this one, it's a shame. It only had a $9 million budget, and it made less than $2 million, so this is a bomb. That's probably why I've never heard about it, or why a lot of people have ever heard about it. But thankfully, you know, now with it coming to Kino Lorber, maybe more people who haven't heard of it, like myself, will get their hands on it and like be like, wow, that's John Malkovich was in this? And then you look up the director and you're like, wow, she directed She-Devil and Desperately Seeking Susan? So it's like, oh, okay, I like those movies. I'll check them out. Now, the only thing that really kind of sucks about the director is after She-Devil, from what I was able to find, she didn't direct anything that I really knew. So she was just really this big 80s director. But she had some classics come out. And this one is going into my permanent rotation. Just to give you guys a little bit of like a peek behind the curtain. I came home last night. I was in a pretty damn bad mood. You know, my regular job is just awful. So I came home, I popped this in, just sat down, and I was wrapped up in this story. Is it the greatest story ever told? No. Is it is there plot holes in it? Absolutely. There's numerous plot holes in it. It's not that kind of movie, though. It's a regular, just kind of run-of-the-mill comedy. It's nothing really more than that. It's not really trying to have a message that beats you over the head. It's more like something that you can just have a good time watching it. I promise you'll have a smile on your face. It's so lighthearted, and on top of that, all those colors, it's so warm and welcoming. I promise you it'll put you in a good mood. So if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. I promise you'll have a good time, especially if you're a fan of 80s comedies. I definitely think this is one that really flew under the radar that should be checked out. So thank you, Carlos, for tipping me off to this movie. I really do appreciate it. But we're also here today to talk about this Kino Lorber Blu-ray, and that's what we're going to do right now.
Minor activity occurs in the medulla, and wham, they think they're in love.
So like I said, this just came out on March 7th, 2023 from Kino Lorber. It's not a Kino Lorber 4K. This is just one of those Blu-rays. I probably didn't see the biggest profit margin to transfer it to 4K. But I was like, oh, cool. It's got a slipcover on it, so I can definitely get uniform with all my other Kino Lorber Blu-rays. I'll grab it. And it was only like 16 or 17 bucks when I grabbed it. I don't know if that's what it's going for right now, but I thought that was a steal for a movie I never saw. I was like, oh, you know what? For that price, definitely worth giving it a shot. And like I said in my movie review, very happy that I purchased this because this will go into my permanent rotation. I will definitely see this at least a few times before I die, unless I die tomorrow. Let's hope not. But how is this Blu-ray? Like I said, Kino Lorber, they threw the slipcover on. The only other Blu-ray from Kino Lorber that I have that's not a 4K, we actually talked about this on Let's Talk Physical Media this past Sunday, is Mississippi Burning, and that is a damn good Blu-ray. I just would like a 4K of it, but it is a damn good Blu-ray. Kino Lorber usually does some of the best transfers I have seen. There was one earlier this year that just kind of disappointed me, but that was the outlier. For the most part, Kino Lorber's transfers are usually top shelf as far as the disc quality goes. I always just have my complaints about their extras and, you know, their packaging in general as far as like disc design, but it's nothing too major as long as that disc is good. All those other complaints are minor. But as far as Blu-rays go, they also do a great job on their Blu-rays, and this was no different. They gave it the slipcover treatment, which I always do appreciate because it's a really nice slipcover, and underneath you get the same bit of artwork. On the back of both, you get the same bit of stats. You pop it open, and all you get inside there is just your one Kino Lorber with your uniform Kino Lorber Blu-ray disc, so no individual disc design, which is what Kino Lorber usually does. Now, like I said, this movie takes place in 1987 in Miami. Bright colors popping everywhere you look. The sky is blue, cars are red. You know, you get these pastels, blues and pinks, even on the interiors. Like I said, I wish that the world was still this colorful because I really love that 80s aesthetic, even though, as I've come to find out, I am definitely in the minority, and so is Matt in that sense, but still, looked amazing. And on this Blu-ray, it is a top shelf Blu-ray, one of the better Blu-rays I have ever seen visually. It's on par with a low to mid-level 4K, I would say. It's not something that's going to blow out Top Gun Maverick, but if you've ever seen some other like low-level 4Ks from the studios where you're like, oh, you know, that was pretty damn good, this Blu-ray was on that level. It really looked great, steady throughout. You know, the only things that you could say like HDR or Dolby Vision would have added were like certain scenes would have made the blacks just a little bit deeper, and you know, she's driving around, Frankie, in a red car. I imagine in 4K that would have just popped off my screen a little bit more. But steady throughout this Blu-ray, it looked gorgeous. One of the better Blu-rays I have ever seen. I mean, it's 2023, so the technology they used, they just had to compress it down to 1080p. So, you know, unfortunately, because it is a new 2K scan, so it is a 2K resolution scan, so it's just compressed down to 1080p. So it's just slightly compressed compared to like if it was a 4K compressed down to 1080p. But man, what a beautiful scan of this movie. Looks like they just filmed it yesterday. If it wasn't for all those clothes, the cars, you know, John Malkovich's ridiculous hair, you would have never even known that this movie was shot in the 80s. It looks that good. It looks like you could step into your screen, and for a Blu-ray disc, that is the highest benchmark you can possibly hit visually, and they nailed it with this. You know, Kino Lorber, I'll just say it again, I know I already said it earlier, but they usually, for the most part, 9 out of 10 times, their transfers are usually top shelf, up there with some of the best from any boutique studio, and even compared to most major studios, they are just up there as far as their transfers go. It's a DTS HD Master Audio 2.0. It's going to start in that. You have no choices. That's it. It's all it is on this disc. You have, as when you put the disc in, it's going to say, hey, you could play it, you got the chapters, and you can look at some bonus features. That's it on this disc. You have no language choices as far as I could find, and you have no choices of changing that audio track. What you see is what you get. And you know what? It did pretty damn good. Like I said, steady throughout. It's obviously front heavy. Everything was crystal clear. I had no problems with it. I was able to put my remote down and listen to it. You know, nothing special. It wasn't meant to be anything special. So, unfortunately, yeah, would I have liked the 5.1? Absolutely. Would I like an Atmos track? Absolutely. But is it necessary for a movie like this? No, it's not. The track that's on here is very much acceptable. Is it as good as the visuals? Do they match up as far as quality goes? No, those visuals I said are some of the best I've ever seen on Blu-ray. This is just a standard track, just with no issues, which is fine. Now the bonus features on here, you know, you get an audio commentary track with Susan Seidelman, who was also, you know, the director and the producer of this movie, and you also have an interview with her, and you have an interview with Ann Magnuson. And both those interviews were great. They gave me some insight to the film. No interviews with John Malkovich, which I would have liked, but you know, you get some insight into the movie because it was really hard to find some reach because, like I said, it's a box office bomb. So you know, there's not too many behind the scenes features of this movie, even on the internet. So it's pretty cool you got those 2 interviews because that's really just explaining how this movie was made and the process of it. And I enjoyed both those interviews, but that's really all you get, and the commentary track. And then, as usual, Kino Lorber loaded this up with trailers because that's kind of how they fluffed their bonus features to make that list look a little bit longer. But you know, it's 2023. You can watch a trailer anywhere. I think they could forego putting trailers on the disc. But hey, maybe you guys like to check out those trailers on your big TV. I know Matt says that when he gets a Blu-ray and they have trailers in the front of the movie, he watches them, and if he likes the trailer, he'll buy the movie on a blind buy. So he's the only person still getting influenced by trailers, I think. But hey, maybe you guys do too. Maybe you guys are in line with Matt. When me, I try and avoid trailers completely nowadays. I like to go into a movie as blind as possible and have no expectations. But, you know, I used to love trailers. But again, putting them on the disc, it just doesn't seem necessary. But if you guys think it is, please let me know. I would love to know. I know that you guys proved me wrong as far as having a pack-in Blu-ray. You know, I didn't think that was completely necessary if you were buying the 4K, but you guys told me about how the fact that you guys take those pack-in Blu-rays and you might have a Blu-ray player in your bedroom or you lend those out. So you know what, maybe you guys have a reason for watching the trailers on the disc, and if you do, let me know in the comment section. I am very interested to know why Kino Lorber has to put like 7 or 8 trailers on all of their discs. But overall, I am really happy with my experience with this Kino Lorber Blu-ray disc and with the film in general. Thank you again, Carlos, for recommending this to me. I probably would have gone my entire lifetime without ever seeing this film, and man, it cheered me up last night. I had a great time watching it. That disc is beautiful. I'm so happy to have this in my collection, and if it is going for that $16 to $17 price range that I bought it for, highly, highly recommend it at that full price. Seems like a steal for a movie like this. I mean, it's a comedy, so everyone has a different sense of humor, so even though I was laughing my ass off, you might not. So it all really comes down to that. What would I give this on a score of 1 to 10? I would still give this a really solid 8 out of 10. The only things that I would have liked is a little bit more bonus features and maybe a better audio track, but overall, those visuals are outstanding. You get your standard Kino Lorber packaging, It's really not too much to complain about. Just would have liked a little bit more of those extras and, you know, maybe a little bit more of the bells and whistles, but it's really hard to complain about something like this because, again, I had no idea that I was even going to purchase this. I'm just so happy that I did, and I can recommend it to you guys. And if you guys do actually want to grab it, we will leave a link to our Amazon affiliate account in the description below. And if you guys do buy it through that link, it helps this channel out so we can keep making these Blu-rays and 4K reviews for you guys. And it costs no extra money to you, but if you don't want to buy it through there, it's no problem at all. It's no pressure. You don't have to do that. But if you do want to help this channel out, something that really helps the channel out is just by simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And then after you're done doing all of that, I just want you guys to go out and just tell all your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.